more distant every day. But despite all those challenges, Gen Z is refusing to stay silent. We're advocating for policies that address these issues and demand better economic opportunities, affordable education, and support, to help us thrive in this world. So.
Yeah, and Carl, I hear part of what Maykala was saying in the very beginning, that there are a lot of people that they're losing their jobs. There are a lot of migrants that are here that are having their families broken apart. So there's a lot of tears that are crying, that are going on. There's all these prayers, and I can recall someone saying you can cry until your tears run dry.
Yeah.
You can pray until you faint. But unless you get up and do something about it, God's not going to put it into your lap. And I've just got to ask you, these these executive orders and with Veronica and ACLU taking all these matters to court, the courts don't work, right? They don't operate on isolated islands. They do feel the pressure of the public. Are there things that you think people should be doing, Carl, to be certain that the courts understand that they are not in an isolated island, but there are people that are directly impacted and making demands on them?
Daryl, one of the things about longevity, being around, you be able to put things in perspective over a period of time. I think that people often forget the progress that we've made in America didn't come by happenstance or by our luck. It came through hard work. There's a reason why our policies towards South Africa changed. There's a reason why the war in Vietnam ended. There's a reason why Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday became a national holiday and Nelson Mandela walked out of a prison cell, that Angela Davis did not go to a gas chamber. The reason was people organized. And for those who are asking the question, what can I do? We have these pages of history we can draw from. For people who are listening, if you happen to be a member of a school board anywhere in this nation, there's nothing wrong with you putting in a resolution condemning the fact that the president and his ilk would like to dismantle the Department of Education. When you put that resolution in your school board, it will ignite a conversation that we need to have. If you're a member of a local city council, there's nothing that prevents you from putting in a resolution, again, condemning what the Trump administration is doing. If you're a member of a General Assembly, the point is that we have power. We have the ability to be able to change the discussion. And as was said earlier, the thought is if you put so much out there, no one will be able to pay attention. No one will focus. We need to be giving to our listeners and our supporters very specific things they can do. Beyond the April 5th, that was a great question you asked, by the way. After April 5th, what then? What then is we got to continue to move forward. The notion that Reverend Jesse Jackson once said, we have the power to be able to energize, organize, and mobilize our communities. What communities are looking for now is leadership. There are people who are asking the question, tell me what I need to do. Obviously, when the midterms come up a year later from now, we'll be directing people to go out and vote. But right now, between now and the election midterm, we should be doing everything we can to remind people of the power that they have. Ultimately, the power that we have as a community is the power to focus attention on a particular issue, to be able to get people to speak up and speak out. There are several things that have already occurred. Right now, this administration is less than 2 months old, but people forgot the Dale victories we've had. There's a reason why the original Attorney General that Trump wanted to appoint, who was a former Florida congressperson, whose seat, by the way, is being challenged today in Florida. Matt Gaetz, there's a reason he's not there. And the reason is because of people saying, no, we don't want that kind of leadership in the Attorney General's office. And there have been other victories. People have forgotten that there are things that Trump wanted to do. Remember, on the first day of the administration, I want to be a dictator and I'm going to do X, Y, Z. Well, a lot of things he wanted to do, he's not been able to do, and in part it's been because of the response of the American people. One of the things, again, I say, as he moves to try to implement many of these executive orders, what he's going to discover is what many of us already know. They're extremely unpopular. If people had an opportunity to give a tax cut to billionaires or to expand Medicare, is any question what they would do if given that opportunity? People need affordable housing. Again, I just think that there are many, many issues that we can rally people around, get them to focus. The key here is specificity. And again, I want to thank you, Barbara, the Transformative Justice Coalition, and ACLU and other organizations. This is hard work, but it's work that we've been able to see the achievements. And lastly, I would just like to say this. I often think of, had Dr. King not been assassinated, had he not been assassinated in 1968, what would his thinking be of the world that we're in? And I think what Dr. King would say if he was living today, we've got more work to do. This is not a time to be moaning. This is time to be organizing. This is not the time to be caught up in paralysis. This is time to get people to move. So I am very, very confident that ultimately we're going to win the battle. And we're going to win the battle because we happen to be right.
And, Veronica, I think that Carl is absolutely correct when he says that, it feels as though, and I opened up with this, it feels as though we're fighting on every front. That every time we not even turn around, because you don't get turned around. You think about turning, and here comes an executive order that has you, your head spinning. Could you just share for a moment? I want to be certain that people understand about the birthright citizenship executive order that he put in that ACLU is challenging. What that actually means. What that what it would do. To the everyday person. Why would birthright citizenship be anything that's important?
Yeah, before I get into that, I just want to lift up something that Mr. Snowden mentioned, which is, all of these organizations, we invite people to get involved in the way that they can. We make sure that there are multiple opportunities for people to engage across all of the organizations. Like, not everyone's a lawyer and not everyone is in a position to go march on the streets, but I guarantee that there is a way for you to be brought into the work that we are doing and get involved. And so I would encourage all of your listeners to go to aclu.org and more importantly, if you're in Maryland, to go to aclu-maryland.org and to look on our action alerts page. If you're there, it will give you information about what we are doing and how you can get involved. And it gives you very specific actions on that. And so back to the birthright case. Yeah, this is an attempt to really roll back what has been a principle, again, one of those fundamental principles of the United States, which is if you are born here, you are a United States citizen. There was a challenge shortly after I believe it was the Second World War, where there was a man from China who was born in the United States, but his parents were from China, and there had been some conflict between the United States and China at that time. And so there was a challenge as to whether he was a United States citizen for the purposes of, birthright citizenship. And the court ruled that he indeed was. His parentage did not matter. This man was born in California. He was Californian, and he's a United States citizen. And so if you think about from that time, how many people have been born here, how many people have contributed to the value and the wealth and the culture of this country, who have parentage from other countries. It is really frightening to think that could be undone. And, it is also a thought exercise when you think about how far back are they looking to remove birthright citizenship, because that might impact a lot of people who actually support this particular executive order to their own surprise, right? And so I think that, as a legal strategy, it is really important to challenge this because it we are challenging it on the basis that it violates the 14th Amendment. And at this moment, the Fourth Circuit here in Maryland denied an appeal from the government, and the government has appealed to the Supreme Court. So that is where the case is headed, which we all expected it to do. And, it is really, again, shocking to the conscience, but not unexpected that they would do this because they told us they would in that Project 2025 case. So again, that lawsuit was actually filed on, January 21st. Yeah.
Wow. And yet there's just so many executive orders that are coming out, and and Veronica, I'm not going to ask you about it, but I certainly need to raise mention of it because we just had an executive order come out on voting rights. And the executive order on voting rights that has come out would make it such that, the absentee ballots and mail-in voting, that if the ballot comes back after the voting day, that it wouldn't be counted, that it would not be permitted, regardless of when it's post-stamped, that it wouldn't be counted, that it wouldn't be part of the vote count. It would move a lot of the material and the holding information from the states if it required all to go to the Department of Homeland Security. Well, why would we want all of our voting information in the hands of Homeland Security?
Absolutely. And actually, that is the lawsuit that was filed.
Questionable.
This lawsuit was filed last night, actually. The lawsuit was filed last night against that specific executive order. Yes, the ACLU has joined that lawsuit about voting rights.
Yeah, but what are they going to? Why does the Department of Homeland Security need our voting records? Why? Cricket. Cricket. That's all we should hear is cricket because they don't need it.
Shocking to the conscience.
Veronica, I'm sorry.
Shocking.
So, Maykala, I got to bring you into this now because you're a local elected official there in Philadelphia, involved in all the elections that are going on there. What should Gen Z be doing, and what should we be doing about all of this, Maykala? We talked about, Christine's group, the Declaration for American Democracy, and getting involved, and their big pushback that they have. What else can we do?
That is a great question. So, as a public official in the city of Philadelphia, there are many recommendations that I have. I'll say first to make sure you're educating yourself and others on what's happening because misinformation is one of the biggest tools being used against us. It was one of the biggest tools being used in elections, and it's still happening today, especially with everything in the media being censored. We really need those, personal conversations. We really need to add our family and friends into group chats and make sure that they know what's going on. Be that primary source for people. Secondly, I'd say to use every avenue available to push back. You need to call. You need to email your elected officials. Show up to town halls and demand accountability. If someone in your area is not hosting a town hall, you host your own. If the elected officials do not show up, you still hold that town hall because then it presents the fact that these people, these elected officials, they work for you. These appointed officials, they work for you. So if they are not making sure that they are making time, they're making space for their constituent voices, then it's apparent who are you really working for? What are you doing this for? So really demand that accountability. Third, I'd say everyone has to mobilize within their community. I'm an organizer. That's who I am at the fabric of my being. And whether it's, organizing voter registration drives, supporting those lawsuits, challenging those unconstitutional policies, or using your personal platforms to amplify grassroots efforts, all of those really, really make a difference. And then lastly, I'd say use your spending power wisely, right? Because we've seen how a lot of companies have been responding to the executive order pushed out by the Trump administration, on DEI, and everyone is, well, I won't say everyone, but a lot of companies are rolling back their policies. I've seen something